Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, viewers, and friends of Iqra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host Iqbal Bana, and I keep saying every week I come into your homes, invading your privacy sometimes, I presume, trying to bring to you issues of interest to the Muslim community, issues that affect us on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully with my guest we try and find some answers, some solutions, some hope as to how some of these issues we can overcome, and the challenge, if there are challenges, how we can overcome those challenges. Over the past few months we've done a number of programs on several issues, as I say, from Islamophobia to education to health to politics, and looking at how the community operates in the current climate, both in terms of the political situation, the economic situation, etc. Every week I try and bring guests to you who will hopefully give us some knowledge, they share their knowledge and information and their advice and guidance on how we can overcome, as I say, some of these issues. Today my guest is a special guest. As I say, everyone's a special guest, but today is a real special guest because he's come all the way from Manchester. There was no border check for him coming over the Pennines. He has been on my program before, and I'm sure many of you will remember meeting him before. Maqsood Ahmed, Chief Executive of the British Muslim Heritage Centre, based in Manchester, is my guest today. Maqsood, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming. Just for my viewers, I've known Maqsood for over 35 years. And 35 years ago, I had much more hair than he had. And if you look at him now, he hasn't changed. The only reason why he's got short hair is because he's just come back for Umrah. May your Umrah be accepted by Allah and reward you for that. Maqsood, thank you very much for coming. And thank you for joining me today. The reason why I've asked you to come today basically is to say the current situation in terms of where we are in the country, both in terms of politics and the economy. I mean, you're an analyst and you've commented on many issues around politics and education and employment, is to say what are the challenges that the Muslim community faces. Before he joined the British Muslim Heritage Centre, Maqsood was the head of equality and diversity in the Home Office, working directly to the Home Secretary. He's worked in the prison service and the NHS in Nottinghamshire as equality and diversity director. So he has a wealth of knowledge around a number of issues. So Maqsood, I just wanted to say, let me just go back a little bit. We did a program on the British Muslim Heritage Centre, and I'm sure my viewers will have seen that. I mean, thank you for allowing us to come in. You were very kind and generous in opening the doors, and several people have commented that they were unaware of what was going on inside the Muslim Heritage Centre, as opposed to, they know it's there possibly, and they were quite taken back by some of the information that is being sort of displayed over there. I mean, have you had any sort of feedback around that? And is that display of Islamic knowledge, awareness, science, the strides that Muslims made in the past century, has that sort of, have you increased that exhibition, or is that something that you're building on at the moment?
Assalamu alaikum, Iqbal Bhai, and thank you for inviting me back again.
You're welcome.
And in a sense, I had lots of hair before last time I came into your program.
I know.
Inshallah. But yes, the British Muslim Heritage Centre is evolving all the time in a sense on it. I mean, it was bought by the trustees 15, 16 years ago. And I don't take credit for that long. I've only been with the Heritage Centre for about 4 years now in that respect. And we do have 2 museums which are very important at the moment. The first
which we
one
showcased.
which you showcased, and kind of, it was a pleasure having you there actually, because if people like yourself can promote some of the work we do, it's only great through partnership. The first one is the House of Wisdom, as we call it, is actually the contribution of Muslims in the past, of contribution to science, astronomy, to algebra and so forth and things like that, where we as the Europeans now actually build on and done tremendous work and progress has been made.
How much, when Muslim people come there, are they surprised to learn all that?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, when I started there, I was surprised that I didn't know half of the things in the exhibition that the Muslims contributed towards, like soap, for example, and cleanliness and things like that. So it's a
I was surprised with the coffee.
The coffee, absolutely, and that's another one that's really, so there's quite popular, lots of stuff that we still use now in modern days, basically, in a sense, from that side. And the second exhibition that we've got is the corridor one, is the stories of sacrifice, where the first, in the First World War, the Muslim contribution, Indian contribution, South Asia and so forth, contributed towards the First World War. And that's a very important one because, you know, we always get accused of what has the Muslims ever done for us in Britain? Well, actually, going back to the First World War and even before that, Muslims contributed towards giving their lives, basically, to defend freedom and justice for Great Britain and United Kingdom. So if people haven't been there, please do come. You're welcome. It's open every day. And come and have a look around.
And there's no entry fee, is there?
There's no entry fee at all.
Yeah. It's open to the public.
It's open to the public and it's open to the Muslims and non-Muslims. Because one of the ideas is actually to promote some of that positiveness to the non-Muslims so they get a better understanding of what we do. Absolutely right.
I mean, I would echo what Maqsood has said, and I said this when I presented the program, both from over there, and I've said this before here as well. I would urge every Muslim family to make a trip to the British Muslim Heritage Centre, because some of the information out there, even I wasn't aware of that, as I said to Maqsood. I mean, some of the information, particularly for young people to know how Muslims in the past have contributed to what we now take for granted. A lot of the astronomy, astrology, you know, maths, algebra, even physics, even architecture would not have been possible had it not been for the pioneers of, you know, Muslim pioneers. Some of them were Sahabas, some of them who followed after the Sahabas, who actually took that mantle and developed some of these sciences into a form that now normal scientists, you know, scientists around the world can use that information to access better health services, better education, better knowledge. And as Maqsood says, even the contribution of the Muslims in the war, which most people tend to forget, it was a huge contribution in both world wars that is not well known at all. And that's why I think it's important that as Muslims we need to learn our own history. And therefore, thank you, Maqsood. I mean, that is a fantastic centre, the British Muslim Heritage Centre, and it's a fantastic work that you do that allows people like me and my children and grandchildren to learn about their Muslim history. I mean, although it's been going for a number of years, what are the future plans for the Heritage Centre? So
the future plans now is we want to make, with regards to the exhibitions, we want to make a visual, so when you can put things on, you know, like speak so you can actually see
immersive,
back into, that's right, go back into the days of the Prophet and the Kaaba, how it used to be and so forth from that side. So we want to bring technology back into that centre. So we've got the trustees got some wonderful plans to actually make it a lot bigger at the back as well, and that will have a massive exhibition centre for the Muslims, inshallah, if we get the funding to make that happen. It will have a health centre there as well with regards to local people coming in, having risk assessments on diabetes, strokes, blood pressure, like you know, where people
one-stop shop.
Yes, absolutely. From that side of it, we'll have a activity centre, exercises as well for Muslim sisters and others on separate days and so forth. So we're going to make it overall a centre for excellence for people, for local people, for Manchester people, and wider really, for Europe basically, for people to come in and admire some of the golden nuggets from the past and for the future. So for example, now we need to start thinking about, even in the 60s when our fathers and mothers came over, they worked in the cotton industry or foundry or bus driving and bus conductors. We need to capture that history because they played a very important part as well, Iqbal Bhai, in the sense, as you know, we grew up in the 80s and the 90s and so forth from that side, and we challenged some of the issues that are facing us. But before that, my father and my mother, may Allah, bless them, they both passed away now, in a sense. But their contribution needs to be recorded, in a sense, because they played a very important part. Your father and mother
in some towns, in Bradford, I think a lot of that work has taken place where they recorded some of the historical contribution and some of the day-to-day lives of people who lived, who came here in the 50s and the 60s. So it's absolutely I agree with you. It's vital. I mean, I hope that this. What Maqsood is saying, what I'm saying to you, will energize you, and in the holidays, take your children there, look at the exhibition, look at the information that it provides, and I'm sure it will empower you in a way that it empowered me, and I'm sure many others have been empowered with the knowledge that is there. It's absolutely vital and important that we do that. We don't have a Holocaust Memorial Day type of event in this country, and good for the Jewish community that they do mark the Holocaust Memorial Day. And I think we need similar education in our own schools, particularly in those areas where there's very limited number of black and ethnic minority or Muslim people as well, so that knowledge is expanded to the non-Muslim community as well as to the contribution that the Muslim community have made. Can I just go back to the original subject that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is the current politics, right? I mean, in this country we're going through major challenges.
Sure.
After COVID, before COVID, the economy at the moment, as obviously in this country, as some people have said, is sort of fallen through the bottom. The politics at this moment is sort of very right-wing, and the rhetoric that the right-wing, particularly some of the politicians that are making, and the comments that they're making, is very damaging and hurtful to the wider Muslim community. As a consequence of that, we have seen a huge rise in Islamophobia. How do you see that impacting on the Muslim community, and what are the solutions to try and get that narrative change around?
So, Iqbal, that's an excellent question. So even though we have contributed in the past, and we continue to contribute now with doctors and engineers and lawyers and barristers and politicians even now. So it's not that we've not been contributing as Muslims, British Muslims. We have, and we will continue to do so. But there are challenges that still remain, and Islamophobia and racism, which is racism and Islamophobia at the coin, is one of the challenges that we face. And the second challenge that I face from our discussion, as you know, we've had this discussion many times. So there are two problems. One is the external challenges of Islamophobia within the public service, within the private sector, within society. Not only in Great Britain, but international now, in my opinion, that's increasing. The second challenge we have is actually our own community becoming more and more segregated, becoming more inward looking. Are you with me? And sometimes it might be because they want to be protected themselves and they want to do themselves. But that's a challenge as well for us to actually engage with the mainstream. If we're not engaging with the mainstream...
When you say inward looking, what do you mean?
Inward looking in the sense of saying, for example, we've got our own little areas, we've got our own little mosque, and we do the 5 times prayers, and we've got our own centres, we've got our own... We are creating a society within a society. Right. And that can be a positive thing in the sense to protect ourselves. We understand that. Are you with me in a sense? So, people are a lot more safe when we do that. But that can also lead to segregation. And I think that can be a danger for us. We need to actually have our people, the future thinkers, the future aspiring leaders not only in politics, but in the media. So, for example, in BBC, in Channel 4, and in Sky News, that's where we need to get to in the sense of it. So there are people within the system of mainstreaming that are having a dialogue, like you and I did when we were in the Home Office. You were having a dialogue with people in the Home Office who were non-Muslims, and there was a bit of a cooperation, understanding taking place. And my being there, I was doing the same thing. Now, in the absence of you and me and other people in that environment, it becomes a void.
Yeah, there's a vacuum.
There's a vacuum. And that vacuum is increasing.
But that is, I mean, the reason why I think you and I were involved in those days is to do with the politics. There were politicians who wanted to hear what are the issues that, our community were facing, what are the challenges. Do you feel that politics is still current at the moment? Or, as I said before...
It needs improving. The politics needs improving in our side.
But when you have, a senior minister or politician who becomes a prime minister saying Muslim women, are, with the hijabs on, are bank robbers, for example.
Yeah.
How do you try and challenge that sort of, that conviction that he has?
So there's two things.
Can I just? I mean, you will see a phone number here on the screen coming up every now and then. If anybody wants to ring in and ask Maqsood a question or wants to make a comment or a suggestion, please feel free to do so. The number will be on your screen, has been on the screen. We'll welcome your thoughts as well on this issue, because this is a very important issue that's facing the whole community, but particularly the Muslim community at this present moment in time.
So there's two areas where we failed in that, when that comments were made by, in the sense of letterboxes and everything else and so forth. One was that the internal political system in itself, where we have Muslims now in that. They're not being appointed because they're Muslims, I understand that. But they have a link. Are you with me in a sense of it? So it was their duty to actually have that dialogue with the person who's saying those comments, making those comments. I think people failed in that internally in the politics system. We didn't have the caliber of member of parliament, except for one or two, the odd ones there, but majority of the members of the parliament, I think, were lacking in that.
Are you referring to the Conservative Party particularly? Because the Labour Party challenged it. Even a non-Muslim, the Sikh member of Parliament, actually was more vociferous and questioned the motive.
And he was, and thank God he was, because I think he set an example, Mr. Singh, to say that in a civilized society we cannot have that type of comments made.
Yeah,
you didn't see many of Muslims saying that. So therefore, one failure was, where were they? Where were the voices of the Muslims or MPs who were Muslims in one sense, because they got that linkage with the faith. And the second one was, I think, outside from our communities. We didn't have the communities to articulate that through pressure, through correspondence, through the political system in itself. So we don't have channels that we can actually get to the right people from that angle of it. So we still need a lot more development within our communities to make that happen.
And how can we develop that sort of intelligence, that knowledge, that commitment, that zeal in the community? How do you think it can be done?
So one example, I've always said that before, in the sense that we need to develop our future leaders who are excellent at the narrative. They are good writers. Not people to go on the streets with banners, but actually have the pen and the narrative that they can persuade others how they feel. Let me give you an example. The Quran burning yesterday from the Sweden, in a sense on it, that's been very hurtful to me as a Muslim. I'm sure it's to you and others across the world. So what do we do about that? We can't remain silent, Iqbal, and not do anything about it, or just talk to ourselves in the mosques or in the community centers. We need to pick up a pen or a typewriter and get onto the computer and actually articulate our feelings and send that to the Swedish ambassador. In fact, this morning we just drafted out for our chair to actually approve our disapproval of what was happening with regards to the Quran as the chairman of the British Muslim Heritage Centre, as an institution. Now, if most of the institutions did that, that's been applying pressure. It's actually getting our views known to the Swedish ambassador in the United Kingdom. That's the least we can do. If we don't even do that, Iqbal, then these things will carry on. So we have a responsibility, and I hope good, sensible MPs and the others will do the same. And people will do the same.
I think that is where our community has been very sort of laid back, in the sense that, there are many, many issues where, and I've said this before, nothing affects the Member of Parliament more than the amount of mail or correspondence he or she gets. Yet, our collective failure as a community has been that when the time has come, very few, if any, take up that opportunity to campaign about maybe Israel or Islamophobia or discrimination, or in this case the burning of the Quran in Sweden, and make that protest or our views known. I mean, good for you, good for the chair, good for the British Muslim Heritage Centre, but how can you galvanize the rest of the Muslim community organizations to do something similar?
One of the ways we're doing is that once we've done the statement and the letters have gone to them, we will then ask others to say, look, this is what we have done.
So you produce a template?
Yes, we produce it. It can be used as a template. This is what we have done. If you feel strong enough, please do something as well. There's the Swedish ambassador's name, there's the address and so forth. We've done most of the work for you. It's up to you now next. If you feel strongly about it like we do or I do, then please do. From your mosque or you're from centre or from your group, do right.
Or as an individual.
Or as an individual, do right, because I'm not saying we go on the streets and become physically violent. That's not what we're trying to do. Here we have to have a debate and we have to have a narrative that tells them how we feel, in a sense, on it. Because, the Quran and Allah lives in our hearts and the Prophet lives in our hearts. So therefore, if something happens to them, we feel it. It may not be a physical, but it's definitely emotional.
Or people should feel it. But the question is, have they been immunized against it? Have people been sanitized now?
No, it could be because of the years of Islamophobia that's been taking place. You see what's happening around internationally in India and in China, in other parts of the countries with regards towards that. You see, the Muslim community is not just facing challenges in one country. It's facing challenges all over the world. And that's the challenge that we have. So where is our leadership to do that? Because it's leadership that actually causing that. So the Swedish ambassadors and the others, and actually they're saying, it's freedom of expression. That person can do that. So our leader is telling the rest of the community that that person can burn the Quran under freedom of expression. our leaders should be counteracting that, Iqbal, and saying, well, actually, no, you can't. No, this is hateful. So you have to have a dialogue at that level as well as the community level. So the absence of our leadership, our national leadership as well, see, it'll be interesting to see how many countries that are majority of Muslim population are actually, I know Turkey has, I know they've done it, but has Pakistan done it? Has Indonesia done it? Has others done it? Has Iran done it? Maybe they have, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see the leadership on that level.
But isn't that one of the fundamental failures of the Muslim world? And that is there's no coordination, there's no sort of leadership in the sense that you talk about, because we're all fragmented in our own little silos and compartments, which is what a lot of people say, that has been a deliberate attempt to do that. So I mean, you look at the issue around Palestine, how long has that been going on for? And because of the collective failures of the Muslim Ummah, the poor people of Palestine are still suffering in a way.
Sure.
Because they've not been able to galvanize that support in order to do something about it. I mean, obviously, you know, these are some of the big issues that, you know, Maqsood is raising, and we've raised this before in our program, and that is about how does the Muslim community harness the power it has. And believe you me, if we can harness this power, we could make a huge difference. And that is something that maybe our viewers might want to share with us, their thoughts around that as well. So we're going to go for a short break. We'll be coming back very soon, inshallah. Let's think about that, and if you have any thoughts, any ideas, any suggestions or any views, please feel free to ring in. Our number's on the screen, and you know, we'd love to hear what you have to say. What does the Muslim community need to do to try and change this force that is constantly bombarding the Muslim community in a negative way? And that is something that we all need to think about and, you know, do something about. Inshallah, we'll be back soon. In the meantime, take care. Go and have yourself a cup of coffee, tea, or faluda, as I keep saying, and we'll be back with you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.